Hey everyone, it's me, um, the world's greatest comic book live stream host. That's right. Sorry, John Suntress. I'm the new John Suntress now. That's what I've wanted to be my entire life is the new John Suntress. No, it's not. I'm Henry Barajas. This is contrary to Henry. This is a show that I do without and no, you don't get a heads up. You don't get an email. There's no notification. I mean, you get a notification if you're following me on YouTube. I live stream this on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, and you can comment and you can join in. You can get in on the conversation. I have an incredible guest. I have no right to have the kind of access I have to this guest I'm about to bring on. I shouldn't have his email. I shouldn't have his cell phone. He doesn't know how I have his cell phone, but we'll get into that in a minute. But he's someone who's been very nice to me when he has no reason to be nice to me, and has been such a kind and encouraging person in the comic book industry, which sometimes is hard to find, especially if you're a person of color. And we're going to talk about all this in a bag of chips. And let's bring on my guest, David F. Walker.
Hey, how are you? We'll do the Vulcan style. How are you?
It's hot here in LA.
Yeah, it's you guys broke 100, right? In the last few days?
Yeah, I'm from Arizona, so this is fine for me.
Oh, see, thank God. I was like, when I was like, I thought he was in Arizona. And then I was like, well, Jay Gonzo's in Arizona. Oh my God, am I confusing my only two? Because I only have two, Latino friends. No, but I in my mind, Arizona was there. So, okay, I feel better now. I was feeling so guilty.
No, you're good.
You're from one hot place and now you live in another hot place. I get it.
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot here, but it's not dry.
Yeah.
That's
good.
That's what keeps me going here. In Arizona, it's dry and it gets to 120 degrees, and you can cook eggs on the sidewalk and you can make cookies in your car.
That's, here's the thing. I don't need to do any of that. That's what a kitchen is for, right? So why would it's interesting. I'm trying to think. I've spent such little time in Arizona. When I stop and think about it, I don't think I've ever, other than passing through, like I've driven through parts of Arizona before, but I've never visited. And then I hear about the heat and it's like, well, why would I?
It's not fair. It's not fair. It's not. Yeah. I remember being a child and being like, why do I live here?
Yeah.
Like being a child, just being like, why am I here?
Well, I do that as an adult now. Why am I here? But it's more existential.
Well, hey, thank you so much. I try to do these live streams to promote what I'm doing, but also use it as a way to promote someone else. And you don't need my help. But
well, we all need help. We all need help from time to time, right? Especially in the comics industry. It's perhaps the easiest industry, other than maybe porn or professional wrestling, to have like an air of success that is far greater than your reality. So I don't know, but yeah.
True. You're so right. You're so right. People think Helm Greycastle comes out and they think I'm rich. I had people from my past reach out to me and ask for money.
Oh, I get that all the time. All the time.
And I'm just like, I paid for that book. Like, they don't know that, but I'm broke. I need you to give me money.
It's funny because I just did I just took a gig, and I gave it my all, but I took the gig for the money so I could pay an artist for a project that I'm doing. I'm to a point in my career where even if I didn't have the money to pay somebody. I wouldn't ask an artist to do it for free. You know, I've got my baseline page rate that I can comfortably pay. And then there's you know, if an artist that I know has a certain amount of juice, I guess, as the kids would say, I might pay him a little bit more. But it's like, people don't get it. Like, and this is how I've been pretty much my entire career, is like, I've literally had part-time jobs just to pay the artist. And
right,
yeah, I ain't rolling in cash. My socks got holes in them.
So in 2015 and 16, I was managing a donut shop. Mm-hmm. I was writing for Sci-Fi Wire on the weekends, and I was working for Top Cow Monday through Monday.
Okay.
So I was working 30 to 40 hours a week for Top Cow, and then if there was a con, I'd be gone. And then I'd be managing I would wake up at 4 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning, open a donut shop at 5:30 in the morning, wait for somebody to come in so I can drive to Culver City and start working at Top Cow at 9 or 9:30, depending on how bad traffic was, just so I can get La Voz de Mayo out.
Yeah.
And working Sci-Fi, like, it was 6-hour shifts, watching the internet, writing about Funkos or whatever, you know, stupid shit that came out that weekend. And it was like the worst. It was the worst couple of years, but it was also, I don't know how I did it. Like, if I had to do that now, I don't know if I could. I probably could.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I worked 3 jobs, like, at the same time, just so that I can put out La Voz de Mayo.
Now, I think about that. I wrote a little bit about that today, just posted a few things. Like, I worked at I ran the warehouse for a women's cosmetic company, and I had that job for 2 years solid. That was pretty much the last job that I had that was like a punch the clock sort of job. But it was like, I don't even recall using the money I made at that gig to pay rent. It was like paying for other things, you know, paying people to do some work for me. It's and I back then I was publishing my own zine, so I know for a fact that, I mean, that thing cost a fortune. I lost so much money doing that thing in the 90s and early 2000s. But that was it. It was like, okay, that's what this job is for. You know, it's and so when people say to me, you know, well, you just don't understand what it's like to work a day job. It's like, oh no, trust me, I do. And then if you get into that position in comics or whatever your you know, your passion career might be, and you know, God forbid you actually get into a position where you're making a living doing it, because then you got to keep that up, right? You gotta. There's like, the life of a freelancer, especially in comics, is brutal. Especially if you don't know how to, like, balance a budget and you know that, like, I got a check maybe 2 months ago. I don't think I'm getting another check until September. So it's just like, okay, you get that check in April or so,
right,
and then you got to make sure you've set aside enough to pay rent and pay for gas, and you know. But hey, no one held a gun to my head to make me do this. So
exactly, that's exactly how I feel. You know, like, I've been kind of bumbling. I saw the reason why I reached out to you today was because of your post about how you said that, you know, it wasn't until your 30s or 40s you were getting a regular page rate in comics, and now you're entering your 50s, and you're going to start a screenwriting gig. And then, I mean, because I've been feeling really down about where I'm at in comics, while at the same time being very, you know, humble and excited about Helm Greycastle being out in a monthly capacity, which is really hard because I've spent a lot of time trying to do that, and now it's out, and you know, as you know, you're at a number 14 on an Eisner Award-winning series, and I'm sure the numbers aren't what you want them to be.
No, they're not. I mean, this industry is in such a difficult position, And when you just factor in what it costs to print and ship a comic, you're already in the hole a few thousand bucks, right? And then it's not easy, and it's not for the squeamish, but like that's not. I'm not doing it to get rich. I mean, it'll be nice, right? But I suppose if I really wanted to earn a steady paycheck, I could clean septic tanks or something like that. I mean, people need their septic tanks cleaned more than they need comics. So, but
honestly,
yeah, no,
that's what I've been thinking about that too.
But that
Plumbers,
that age thing, that age thing is it's a beast. But so here's the thing, like you're talking about where you're at and your position in your career, and here's the thing that I have to remind myself of all the time is that for the most part, it's impossible to see where you are until after you've left it, after you've left that space, that time and space in your career, right? So where you are right now, tomorrow's New Comic Book Day. People are going to go to their local shop, and hopefully the local shop has got Helm Greycastle, right? They've got your new book, and there's people out there that are looking at it and looking at you and going, man, if I could just be this guy, right? If I could just be him, right? And meanwhile you're just going, who wants to be me? I mean, we go through that, right? And then a few years from now, hopefully, you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, wow, wait a second. Just like you're talking about working in 3 jobs, just like you're talking about the working at the donut spot, right? It's like you look back on it now and you're like, yo, I did that, right? Now you're going to be looking back on the comics and be able to say, yo, I did that. And hopefully a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you'll be in another place where you'll be, having an existential crisis about where you're at in your career. And because it's almost impossible to see where we are in the present, and I have that problem all the time. And then fortunately I'm surrounded by enough sadistic people who feel the need to remind me of like how good my life is. Cause I was born to be miserable. Right.
Right.
But it's very, especially when you're, when you're at a point in your career where it's like things just aren't quite coming fast enough, the work's not coming quite regularly enough, and it's like, okay, hey, I made enough money the last 6 months off of this one particular thing that I'm doing, but now I'm going to not make any money off of it. What do I do? Is right. Do I got to go get a job at McDonald's? Look, at this point in my life, if I drive by a place and it still says, it has a sign that says like now hiring or accepting applications, help one, or whatever, doesn't matter what it is. I drive by and I'm like, oh, look at that. Jiffy Lube, they're hiring, it's like I file it away in my mental Rolodex.
No, I'm in the same position. It's like I'm currently paying for my own healthcare. That's like taking a real hit. I mean, was that a cat?
No, I'm playing with a a little rubber monster that made a squeaky sound. So I keep these little rubber monsters by my computer, and it just like it keeps me. I fidget a lot when I'm on Zoom, and I got chapstick. So people, so there was at some point I did something on a streaming sort of thing online. And it was recorded, and I watched it, and it was like literally the entire time I was like going up and down and moving, and so I'm trying my hardest to not do that. So I've got this, I've got my fidget spinners and all these things that I, mess with.
Yeah, so. I got a chapstick. I get my, I got a lot of weird stuff. Roll of quarters for laundry.
Yeah.
It's just like, I've been learning. I've done some live streams, and I'm like, wow, it is obvious I'm not paying attention. It's obvious that I'm like miles away while everyone else is talking. We did a panel together last year for San Diego ComicCon.
2 years ago. It's 2 years ago, right? 2019.
No, it was last year.
Was it?
It was online. Yeah, we
Oh,
did the
okay.
online.
Yeah, no, those don't count, man. But yeah, you're right. We did.
Yeah.
I've totally forgotten about all the online stuff. I mean, it's pretty easy to remain active, but it's like there's something about doing this stuff online. It's not like because we've been on panels together at San Diego,
San
specifically the
Diego.
library, right?
That was cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And so like that stands out in my mind because it's like, oh yeah, we're at the library and San Diego's got a nice library but it's right in the like most disgusting part of town and but then it's like, okay, so now you know, we're online and
Yeah.
I'm playing with a rubber monster under the desk because whatever.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah. It could be worse. It could be worse.
So I mean, like, okay, let's I love comics and comics is my everything. So let's start with Bitterroot number 14, Juneteenth cover.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and that was, I think that was just announced last week. Sanford likes to play his cards close to his chest, but number 14 has got the Juneteenth commemorative cover. Number 13, I think, comes out tomorrow. I think. I'm not 100% sure. So same day as yours.
Okay,
maybe.
Great.
But yeah, what do you want to know? What do you want to know about Bitterroot?
Well,
it's
I mean, I love it. I read it, but somebody watching might not. So if you want to give us either a pitch on the series or where we're at right now, because we are issue 14.
Yeah. So Bitterroot's it takes place set against the backdrop of the Harlem Renaissance. It's about a family of monster hunters, and they've been hunting and treating monsters for generations. And in this particular world, monsters are people who've been infected by racism and hatred. It's turned them into this creature. And when we first come into this story in issue 1, it's the first time we see a different kind of monster, and it's people who've been transformed by grief and pain into something uncontrollable. And so we're at issue 14, which issue 14 is at the printer right now. Issue 13 is getting ready to come out. And then issue 15 will wrap up the third story arc and then wrap up the bigger story that we've been telling since issue 1. And then we take a hiatus. We're going to, I'm taking a hiatus. The rest of the team, if they want to keep going without me, they can. But, it was never meant to. I'm not a big fan. I do like comics that have long runs, but I think in this day and age, the industry doesn't necessarily support that much. And I would rather read a finite series that remains consistently entertaining than have something just go in the shitter, So
right.
We, when we first started doing the series, we weren't expecting it to be like the level of success that it's found. We weren't expecting it to get optioned. We weren't expecting, the pretty solid likelihood that there's going to be a movie. So now we're talking about these things, and it's like, okay, we have to leave the door open enough to come back and tell more stories. We want our ending to be open-ended enough that it makes sense to come back, and it doesn't feel like a cash grab. Although everything in life is a cash grab, right? We're capitalists. That's what.
Totally. Yeah.
But yeah, so we're winding down, and it's been really difficult because we've been seeing so much every day in the news in terms of police brutality and racism in this country, and this tremendous pushback, and the pushback is just a pushback of the status quo, right? It's just a pushback of the oppression in which this country was built upon. And when you're doing a comic like this, the last thing you want is to be super relevant to the times. It's more like, oh, we thought we were just going to have fun making a comic, and I should have known I couldn't do that because I'm I've never seen a soapbox that I didn't want to stand up upon and start preaching. So,
well, it's one of those things where like with La Voz de Mayo came out originally 2016, or no, like 2017. Then the trade paperback came out November 2019, but the first 2 pages are about deportations and police brutality.
Yeah,
and you can open that book and it could be today.
Yeah,
nothing has changed, and I think that's one of the most amazing things about Bitter Root is you also have like John Jennings, Stanford Green, what was it? Stanford Carpenter.
Yeah. All the smart people, they're all college professors. They all either have.
That's why I got Frederick Aldama to do an intro for La Voz to be like, hey, this is actually smart, I think, and here's a smart guy who's gonna say this might be smart.
Yeah, Aldama, Stanford, John Jennings, Dukes. What's Dukes' first name? Is it Elvira Dukes? I can't think of her name. She's a professor
Dukes,
too.
You really don't need another name. That's a
name. But yeah, there's so many of these intellectual professors, doctors, PhDs, and they're all nerds. And so it's pretty cool though that we were at a time where like there's crossover, right? Where we go to these conventions and the smart people are there. And then there's us, right? And we kind of go, hey, we're making comics. And the smart people look at us like, oh, like we've done something incredible. And meanwhile, we're looking at them like, man, you're a doctor? So it's a trade-off. It's all a fair trade-off.
Right. No, totally. But yeah, I mean, this book has been so much more than this amazing comic. And that you have these amazing minds that expand upon that. That is stuff that I like to read, stuff that I like to put in my books, and I think, I mean, like, what made me really fall in love with the series was hanging out with everyone at BCAF and having those experiences, which I miss a lot. That having, hanging out in the hotel and then going to the con. And cashing in on white guilt. I mean, San Francisco is a very wealthy place, and I did well.
Yeah. No, I kind of miss that too. I mean, I don't miss conventions as much as I claim that I do, but I do miss the community, the camaraderie, that sort of thing, right? It's when I stop and think about it, we're coming up on. We've already entered into the second year of not seeing people. You talk about BCAF. For a lot of people, convention season starts at, like, say, Emerald City up in Seattle. But for me, in March. But for me, it starts in January with BCAF. And if I'm able to make it to New York for the Schomburg's Black Comic Book Festival, that's always the same weekend. So
I don't know how you did that 2 years in a row. You went to New York and everyone's like, yeah, David's flying in from New York. I was like, yeah, right. Next day, there you are in the hotel lobby having the continental breakfast. Like, I was like, how does he do it?
You know what? Now that I haven't done it now for, I did it last year, obviously. This year, I really missed it. This year was meant to be sort of my retirement year from doing that. My book on the Black Panther Party was scheduled to come out. And so I was really going to use this year to wind things down in terms of going to lots of conventions and doing a lot of appearances. It was actually meant to start last year and then go into this year. And then by 2022, I was going to be retired. I'm sure that my retirement would have looked a lot like when Kiss has retired every year for the last 40 years. There it is. That's the thing.
Book soup. Got that book soup.
And so I don't know. I miss it. I can't. I miss it so much. I talk to my therapist about it. Right. So it's interesting when, I realize I talked to John Jennings a couple days ago, and, there's been at least since the last time I saw John was January of 2020. There's something like 5 things that have happened that would have happened that we would have hung out, because we usually hang out 4 or 5 times a year, right, in person. And it's like, nope, haven't seen them. And it's like that with a lot of folks. And I, I just don't know if I want to keep going to conventions. The travel does wear you down. It's weird because right now I feel like, oh, I could do it. I'm ready to travel because I haven't traveled in over a year. But, when you're out of town at least once a month, every month for a year, it kind of breaks you down.
Yeah, I did 15 shows in 2019.
Yeah, I think I did 12 or 13. It's insane.
Yeah, I remember seeing you a lot.
Yeah.
And I did such a great job. I was practicing social distancing, hand washing way before all this. And the only thing I didn't do was wear a mask. And I almost started wearing a mask because I saw Steens wearing a mask.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I should do that. But I'm not cool and I don't like K-pop, so it wouldn't make sense. So now I have an excuse to wear a mask. And I did 15 shows. My last show was Kala, which was like the last, and then before that was Thought Bubble. But I got sick the week before Christmas, and for 2 weeks I was sick.
I was crazy sick after that BCAF weekend, January of last year. As you said, I went to New York first, spent 3-4 days in New York, then flew immediately to San Francisco, and then went home. And so this is like late January that all this happened. And at that point, not that many people were talking about COVID, but the first cases were popping up here in the US. I was so sick. I was sick for nearly a month after that particular weekend.
Wow.
I don't know for sure if I had COVID or not, because it never occurred to me. It wasn't until like maybe September or so of last year, I just happened to be reading an article about symptoms, and it was like, oh, you had all of these, So, and there was a time last summer, early fall, where a lot of people were starting to realize like, oh, maybe I had it because it was here, it was here before March or April, which is when the news really started reporting it. So,
I got sick in December, was like winding down by the time BCAF rolled around. And a lot of people I knew got sick that week, that month.
Yeah, it's tough to tell because it was a convention. See, it's conventions and you're around tons of people and it's cold and flu season. But yeah, it's definitely a lot for me to think about as I, as we all move forward. Last year I was supposed to, Sanford, Chuck and I, the Bitterroot team, we were supposed to go on a tour in France. We were supposed to do a book tour in France.
Wow.
And that, like, I've never been to Europe, so I was kind of primed for that. That was going to be August, and it was, I want to say it was like a 1 to 2 week book tour, and then I was just going to take another 2 weeks and just, bum around Europe because I'd never been, and then didn't happen.
Right. Yeah, I was in the same boat. I had La Voz de Mayo come out November 2019 every month for 2020, 2 to 3 shows.
Yeah.
San Diego ComicCon special guest status. Like that was gonna be Summer of George, and I was heartbroken. It was really difficult to be like, I've worked so hard that year of 3 jobs to have this book come out and then have so much enthusiasm behind it, and it's gone. Like, it's an old book. It's not like I'm lucky that San Diego has extended another invitation, but all those other shows are either no longer happening, and
this is what I've been telling myself, because I know I'm going to go back to doing shows. I won't do them as many, but I'll still do some. But just like what we're going through, everyone's going through something similar, right?
Oh yeah.
And like there's a certain number of people that are always going to discover your books at a convention, and those people are still going to discover your book at a convention. And anything that you do is always going to be new to someone. And so the key thing is, I've thought about this a lot, because one of the things I just was tired of doing was lugging books, cross country on airplanes, shipping them to myself. But it's like, even now, there's still people who are like, oh, I just talked to a guy a couple days ago. He hadn't read a single issue of Bitterroot. He just read it. And it was like, okay, see, it's new to somebody. You never know. I mean, I still haven't read, Catcher in the Rye. At some point, I'm going to read it. It'll be new to me, right?
I think it's too late for you in Catcher in the Rye.
Oh, I don't know. Who knows? I have a copy of it. That's the thing. It's like it's one of those things I've been saving for, like,
right.
This is God's honest truth. I'd seen The Godfather before. I hadn't seen Godfather 2. I had it when the movies came out on DVD back around 2000, 2001. I got the box set, but I never watched Godfather 2. And I was like, wow. I was just waiting. I was waiting to a point where it was like, everyone's talking about, oh, it's better than Godfather, and it's one of the greatest movies of all time. And I was like, okay, well, if it's that good, it'll hold up. And I just, like, it's got to be the right moment, And then one day, like maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, it was really recently that I watched Godfather 2. I sat down, I watched Godfather one day, and then I watched Godfather 2. I didn't even mess with Godfather 3. I still haven't seen that.
Yeah,
one yet.
Don't mess with that.
But it's cool sometimes to, to sort of discover things that you are supposed to have read, or movies you're supposed to have seen, or albums. I was kind of like that with the Clash. I knew who the Clash was, and I knew some of their songs in high school, because I'm a little bit older. But I didn't have any Clash albums until, within the last 15, 20 years. And now that I listen to, I love them. And I'm like, why didn't I have these albums? And it's like, all right, it's fine, because now I have something new to discover, and
no, totally.
And something doesn't have to be new for it to be new, it can be
right.
And that's the thing. Quality doesn't go away, I mean,
that's true.
Army of the Dead will still be Army of the Dead 10 years from now. It won't be any better. So it's
it's funny, because this is something I've been talking to about some other creators that I've had on. Comics is a weird thing where, like, a comic comes out, and by the end of the day, Wednesday night, it's almost as if it never came out.
It's almost disposable. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because we're talking about an industry that for years comics were meant to be disposable, right?
Oh yeah.
And now they've taken on this other life, this other meaning, but they're still, it's one of the reasons I have to get trade paperbacks. I can't get floppies anymore because I will lose them, right? And so I'll sit down. Oh, I want to read, Tom King's Mr. Miracle. I have issues 1 through 3. And then 10, 11, and 12. And then there's a whole, where are the other ones? I don't know where they're at. But the book, they're all in one spot. And it's funny because I was talking about Jay Gonzo, he lives in Arizona, and I've got all of his floppies. That sounds so weird saying it that way. I can't find them. So right. when he put out the book, or when he did the Kickstarter, I was like, well, I was going to get it anyway, but I need it now because, in fact, last time I saw you, I saw him. I got his final issue. I don't know where that is. It's somewhere. I know where issues like 1 through 4 are, but yeah, comics are a weird thing, man. They're very weird.
They're very weird. But I love them, and I feel lucky sometimes to be in this industry. I think I was very lucky that we got to get Lamano in the direct market through Top Gal and Image, because he paused his dream to realize mine. And even if I didn't know him and he didn't do that for me, I would have championed that book because I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I love it.
I met Jay in Ohio several years back.
Yeah.
SoulCon, and his table is next. I think his table is right next to mine, or is one or two down. And I'm just like, this dude is nuts. He just his obsession with paper and the texture of paper, and it's nutty, but I say that in the most respectful of ways. And I was just like, it shows his passion for it shows. And I remember like right after that SoulCon, somebody said, what's a really good indie comic we should be checking out? And I was like, this one right here. And my Kickstarter book hasn't arrived yet, so I might have to text him or email and be like, where is it? But it's fine. I'm excited when I see him and see you and see people that I've met along the way, and it's like, you just keep plugging away. You don't give up. It's hard. It's really, really difficult. The thing that's more difficult is living with the regret of not having done it. Right? That's what it comes down to. I can tell you, as somebody who scratched the itch of working at Marvel and DC, I've done it. There's some characters I'd like the opportunity to write, but I've done it. I'm ready. I don't need to do that anymore. I like comics. I love comics, but working for those corporations aren't my be all and end all.
Right.
And I'm discovering things that I want to try and things that I want to do. And I'm never going to be able to get to do them if I'm writing, Green Arrow and Speedy. I'm just not going to get to do it. So it's all about exploring what I want to do and having as good a time as anyone can have when they're a neurotic mess.
We got a fan watching. Thanks for checking this out.
This?
But I'll bring it back up. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like I grew up wanting to do my own comics because I was lucky enough to be in that age where independent comics like Image were a thing.
Yeah.
So I never thought I'd be able to write, Batman or Superman or anything because I didn't see myself in those books.
Yeah.
And I never saw and still don't see Latino or Latinx people behind those books. And I'm glad that that's not my end all be all, but it would be nice to not have to do a book soup to nuts,
Yeah.
No, here's the script. Here's what I have to say about this.
Yeah. It's, if anything, I will say this though. I've come to appreciate, as much as I'll complain about the soup to nuts process of making comics and stuffing them into envelopes and sending them and going to the post office, doing all that sort of stuff, the almost punk rock aesthetic to it. I appreciated it more when I came back to it after doing runs at Marvel and DC, and and I'm probably going to do another thing for DC pretty soon, and I've got a couple other corporate gigs lined up that I can't talk about, but there's something about not having somebody say, sorry, Luke Cage can't do this anymore. So, well, why not? Well, he just can't. No, I want an answer, because this, like, my whole story was built around this. I had my run on Luke Cage was very, very difficult for me, and every step of the way, things I got, editorial mandates. I had to change this. I had to change that. By the time issue 10 rolled around, it was pretty, like, I knew it was, well, by the time issue 10 came out, I knew it had been canceled, but it was like that particular book got canceled, and it never even had that chance to be what I was hoping it would be. Right. Oh. It was always, oh, we can't do this because of the Netflix show, or we can't do this because of this other thing. And at the end of the day, it wasn't the best book that I could do. And I say that there's like the best book that you can do under the circumstances that you were given. So it was the best book I could do under the editorial circumstances at Marvel, but it wasn't the best book. It wasn't even close to my best writing, and it was never going to get there, because every single time there was pushback in some capacity. And then when, it got decent reviews, but sales were abysmal, and it was just like, and suddenly it's my fault, right? It's
Right.
people will try to blame you if a book doesn't sell well. And it's like, well, wait a sec. No. See, my job is to write the comics, right? My job is to be marginally charming enough online that people don't boycott me. Your job is to sell them. And if that means you got to knock on
for that.
Yeah, exactly. But there really isn't. So right. I don't know, man. I go back and forth. I mean, I haven't given up on the medium, right? Because I love
That's the thing.
But it's like I am determined to do things in the medium that I want to do. At this point, it's like I want to do this. Otherwise, what am I here for? Right? It's yeah. So it's once in a while, something cool will pop up and it'll be like, oh, this will be fun. I'll do this, and someone's going to pay me. But sometimes it's just like you're out there, collecting empty bottles and cans and taking them back to get the deposit so you can pay your artist. I don't know if you've been to this point yet where you're on one of those global currency websites seeing, okay, where does the dollar go furthest, and can I find an artist in that country, right? So,
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm lucky, that we are that the Kickstarter has helped me compensate for people getting living wages, not living wages, but better than poverty wages.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm lucky that I have enough of imagination where if I can find a way to not have to crowdfund everything I do, I have the next 5 years of my life of what I want to do,
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I'm pretty lazy too when it comes to it. I was supposed to have launched a Kickstarter already. It's languishing, and there's part of me that doesn't want to do that. Or it drives me crazy. But here's the thing: if I do it, I know that it's going to get done, right?
Yeah.
I know that it's difficult, and I think that especially in comics, we're going to see more of it. I mean, Boom is doing Kickstarters, and Dynamite's doing Kickstarters, and it's like, and here's the thing: this tells you everything you need to know. Books on Kickstarter, comics on Kickstarter are outselling what retailers are capable of doing. So why is that? What is it? How is it that Kickstarter has, found its way to find an audience that the local comic book retailers can't, that most of your local comic shops can't? And the thing is I have a way about me when I walk into a comic book shop, whatever city I'm in. The first thing I do is I look to see, okay, what, do they have Saga? Do they have, I'm looking for the Image titles or maybe a Boom title or something that lets me know that they're getting more than just Marvel and DC. And I've walked into some stores in other cities and I've just been like, all right, is it really that your customers don't want this, or is it you who don't want this and therefore you're not offering it to your customers? Because like one of my local shops it's like, man, they have everything. They have all kinds of crazy stuff, and I'll go in there and it's like, okay, what's new from Image this week, or what's new from First Seconds, or
I grabbed this today.
Yes, I got that like 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah,
that's the sort of stuff I want to be finding.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not going to say which shop, but I got the question of like, oh, do you think other publishers are going to like leave Diamond? I mean, I think there's, like you said in the beginning, and I hate to get to insider baseball and all this, but nice, good, yeah, me too. I mean, I love that book. Like, what is going to happen? There is a shift with distribution, and with Kickstarter, it's to direct to consumer. You know, nobody has to go anywhere and get the books that I want to do, and it's an interesting time right now, definitely.
It is, and and so I'll say this too, because you were talking a little bit about your, some frustrations or whatever, the existential dread. It doesn't, it never goes away, right?
Right.
we always have it, but I do think that there is no better time to be a creator than right now, right? I was talking to a buddy of mine about a week or two ago. He's getting ready to do his first Kickstarter. And we met back in the 90s and when we were, doing zines and mini comics. And we were talking about the fact that, like, when we got started, you had to do a minimum print run of 1,000. Like, that was it. If you were going to an offset printer, there was no print on demand. There was, like, print on demand meant 1,000 units, right? And, like, who had that kind of money, right?
Space.
Yeah. And so nowadays, the per unit cost has gone up a little bit for production, but if I only want to get 200, I can get 200. And most people are understanding enough, especially with Kickstarter, to go, okay, I'm buying it directly from you, or I'm buying it directly from this group that you're part of. And they're willing to do it. And I think that speaks volumes to the audience that's out there. I think the fact that anybody can, Ngozi, I don't know if you know Ngozi, she does Check Please. Her Kickstarter's she's at nearly 500,000 right now.
Oh my gosh.
Like, come on. And yet I guarantee you, if you could walk into 75% of the comic book retailers in this country and they won't have any of her books. Most of them don't have any Raina Telgemeier books, right? Nobody, except for maybe Dogman, Captain Underpants Cat. He sells those sort of numbers, but we need to change. And I look at young people like you, Henry, and I think to myself, this is where the change is coming. I do think that there's, I'm a little bit older. I think that there's a younger generation of creators that you're part of that I think are, like, it's how you weather the storm. And there's this power that none of you, or very few of you, recognize that you have yet. And which is probably a good thing, because then you'd all be a bunch of arrogant assholes. But what I think is, if you look at, and I know we got to wrap this up soon, if you go back and look at comics in the late 90s, early 2000s, Greg Rucka, Brian Bendis, Matt Fraction, Kelly Sue DeConnick, those people who came in, and Ed Brubaker, another one, really had this impact on the industry and on the art form. But a lot of the people who came in afterwards were influenced by them, and they were just reading comics over. And, like, if you want to be a comic creator, you got to do more than read comics, right? You've got to read other things, but you also have to look at the medium and go, how do I make this mine? How do I make this? How do I change it? What do I do? And like right now, it's ripe for that. I think that there's, I think that the next really big voice that this medium is going to produce, I don't think it's going to come out of, a Marvel or DC creator. I don't think it can. I don't think that publishing model supports it. I think it's either going to be Kickstarter, or it's going to be like a publisher like First Seconds or Scholastic or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I love Instagram comics right now. Simon Hanselman's Megan Mogg, he's just putting it up for free.
Yeah.
I pre-ordered Crisis Zone that he did it was a daily pandemic comic. Incredible work, I think.
Now, what's the name? Because I haven't checked it out, so I'll check it out right now.
Simon Hanselman, Megan Mogg.
Okay.
And it's incredible. It's also very sadistic and gross and disgusting, but I think you'll dig it. I'll
check it out. I'm always looking for this kind of stuff. I just saw, I'm so bad with names and titles, but I'll do is I'll either email to myself, or I'll send it to somebody else, send them the link, and then if they like it, they'll go, "Oh, thanks for sending me that," and then I know, okay, yeah, I got to buy that. I just sent something to John Jennings the other day. I can't remember the title of it, but I was like, okay, I'm going to order this digitally.
Nice.
And that's the other thing too. It's like digital comics, man. That shit's just amazing to me. It's that I still love reading physical books more than anything else. But what you see behind me is only a small portion of what I have. I have too much. Sometimes it's just nice to hop on the tablet or hop on the laptop and read some comics. So
I do the same. Hoopla, if you got a library card.
Yeah.
I can't. I would be kicking myself if I don't inquire about Naomi. I think. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. Well, depends on who you ask. I say Naomi. I think
Naomi.
Naomi, I think, is how Bendis pronounces. He's wrong. I'm right. What would you like?
I had a friend who came to me and said, "Hey, I'm in LA." They're like,
yeah.
I'm doing like a casting thing for this show called Naomi, and I was like, oh my god, like that's like I was so happy to be like someone's coming to me about this, and and my advice, because they were playing, I guess, the older character, and I was like, my advice was like, this is you are going to mentor the next Superman, like this is how important this is. This is like exactly when Superman crash landed in Farmville. You found the first baby. What do you do next? This is the gravity of the situation. And I don't know if they got it. They probably didn't. But were you able to go on set? Were you?
No, man. They kept me off set, man. I mean, and I wouldn't have gone anyway because of the pandemic. But they
filmed this during the pandemic. Wow.
Yeah. They filmed it like a month ago, 2 months ago, just finished. They're probably not quite done with post-production right now. Everything has happened so incredibly fast that we didn't know it was getting picked up, right? We found out yesterday when everybody else found out. We kind of knew that it was going to be, it seemed like, just from conversations we were having, it seemed like that or the Powerpuff Girls was going to be one or the other is what it seemed like. And then a friend of mine, like a week ago, I don't know how he saw the footage, but he saw some footage from Powerpuff Girls and he was like, there's no way they're going to pick it up. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. Well, so suddenly I'm feeling bad for everyone that was involved with that. But I was like, that bodes well for us. And, they honestly, we were supposed to see footage. We just wrote the comic. Nobody cares about us, right? We're so low on the totem pole. And it's funny when I hear the angry writers talk about, I'm not getting enough credit. And I'm like, yeah, no, I know that feeling. And there's just times where I got to bite my tongue, but it's, it's cool. There's a TV show in the next, I'm guessing by the end of the summer, the pilot's going to air. They might even air it sooner rather than later, Wow. So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. and I don't know. Let me see if Brian's texted me where, we keep talking about possibly doing a, the follow-up, but that all comes down to if DC wants to do it or not. And
I hope so. I really do.
It would be nice. I know Jamal finally just wrapped up Far Sector, so this is the first time that all three of us have the time to do it. So if it's going to happen, we need to make it happen like now.
Yesterday,
really?
Yeah, definitely. So. And again, just I will be kicking myself if I don't inquire about this. But my really good friend Brian Edward Hill is rewriting the Bitterroot script, and I got to actually meet Regina King at the donut shop that I was managing, and she is gorgeous. Like Instagram filter in real life. I was shocked, and the only thing I was like, I love you in Boondocks, and like I should have said Miss Congeniality too, but I was just stunned. And this was like when Watchmen was out, and I wasn't watching Watchmen until they did the Oklahoma Massacre, 2-day watch. It's free online.
Yeah.
I wish I had watched it then, but so, and you said the movies, like, the possibility is greater now, and
No, the Brian, I don't know if he's turned in his final draft or not yet. I talked to him about 2 weeks ago, and but Regina signed on to direct, and she's actually been on board for quite some time. It was just the timing of making an announcement was never seemed to be quite right. And it's again, if there was a magic 8 ball and I was looking at it, it would say, probably say chances are good. Just because there's certain indicators that you can look at in terms of how the film industry works, same with how the television industry works, and you go, okay, like if we're super close to the make or break point, and every day it's sort of like, okay, is today the day where they decide they don't want to do it, they want to pull a plug? But I honestly think I think it's going to happen, and that's a really weird thing, because I've known so many friends who've optioned properties before that they don't get made, right? And so I'm almost conditioned for the, oh yeah, this has been in development for 10 years and it didn't get made. This has been in development for 15 years, it didn't get made. And then I'm like, oh man, this has been in development for like not quite 2 full years yet. I think this is going to get made. It's pretty weird. I'm still processing all of it.
It's funny because the first issue of Helm comes out, someone sends me a message and goes, "When's the movie coming out?"
Yeah.
Like,
tomorrow. Yeah. Who knows?
It's either tomorrow or 10 years from now. I'm really excited for it. I mean, it seems like there is a substantial push, and like you said, it could never happen. But the fact that these amazing, Ryan Coogler, right, producing, like, incredible. Like, that's who I like. If I could say who's your dream like team, Ryan Coogler, Regina King, number one.
They were both at the very top of the list, right? Like, and in both cases, we were like, yeah, we'll never get them, and then we're there. So it's the key thing is if you don't try, you'll never know. That's what it comes down to, and you have to try, and if it doesn't work out, you just do it again. If Clubber Lang beats you in the fight in Rocky 3, you go back and retrain so that you can, and you get the eye of the tiger, and then you go back and win your title back. That's how it works. Everything I know about life, I learned from Rocky 3.
And that's how we're going to end this. David, I miss you. So good to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
It's good to see you. Thanks for reaching out and the invite. I'm hoping that we'll get to see each other live and in person sooner rather than later.
Do you have a show that you're doing soon?
No. Although I'm probably just going to drive down to LA for like 3-4 days just to go to LA, just to be someplace different. I'll go see, I've got family down there, so that'll be good. But we'll see.
Well, if you have time, we'd be happy to get some Mexican food or get some food while you're around.
Sounds good. I'll reach out.
All right.
It was good seeing you. Live long and prosper. Hey, I'll go pick up the comic tomorrow. Go to the shop.
If it sucks, don't tell anybody.
No, I've got I've got the first issue. I haven't read the first issue yet, but I've got it. So
thank you.
It's in my pile of, you need to read this stuff. I want to read this stuff, and then I don't. I don't. Honest God truth, I don't think I bought a single comic in the last 2 months that I've actually read. So the pile's getting higher and higher. And
that's good. Good. That's good. They're really good to hear. Seriously.
Yeah. No, so hate it. It's well, no, I'm not going to hate it. I already know that. So,
all right, David.
I will talk to you later. Thanks again for having me.
Yeah. I'll see you later. And that was David Walker, who I really needed to hear some of the things he had to say, because I've been this close to quitting comics. And it's really difficult. It's a really difficult industry, line of work, but it's also everything I've ever wanted to do. And I'm very happy and excited that Helm Greycastle #2 is coming out. Labor of Love. We got a cool. Oh, here's the 2 issues. Here's the Stepan Sajic Virgin cover B, and then we have the Dale DeForest cover A. And I'm very proud that we have a Navajo indigenous artist on this cover artist. And like I say, every issue has a inside, front, back cover, or at some sort of interactive map for the back game, which in this issue we have by Jeffrey Golden with art by Jen Vaughn, and it's a 5e compatible role-playing game. So pick it up, tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell people that you don't know on the street, and I would appreciate it. Then I just want to give thanks to the people who have been watching and the comments. Please share, like, and subscribe, as everyone on YouTube says, I guess. And big thanks to David for his time, because you don't get to see your friends. Like I saw David 4 or 5 times in 2019, and you don't want to take that stuff for granted. So if you're watching, thank you. If you're not watching, thank you too. Whatever you're doing, just keep on doing it and stay positive. And if you need me, I'll be there. See you later.